Imagine your wedding night. Most people picture roses, candles, promises whispered in the dark. But for many women in the Ottoman Empire, the night of marriage began with something else entirely: chains. Instead of a husband waiting with flowers, there were guards carrying whips, iron rods, and contracts signed not with love, but with ownership. These women were called slave brides. Their marriages weren't fairy tales, they were transactions. And when they resisted, displeased their masters, or even dared to dream of escape, punishments followed. Not small punishments, brutal ones. Punishments designed not only to hurt the body, but to crush the will. Tonight, we enter that world. A world where silk curtains and golden palaces hid darker truths. A world where obedience meant survival, and defiance meant pain, humiliation, or death. For more than 6 centuries, the Ottoman Empire stretched across Europe, Asia, and Africa. At its peak, it ruled millions of people. Slavery wasn't a hidden practice, it was built into the system. Men were taken through the devshirme, boys seized from Christian families and raised as soldiers or administrators. Women, by contrast, were captured in raids, bought in markets, or gifted into households. Some entered palaces as concubines. Others became wives in name, but slaves in reality. These marriages were less about love and more about power. A slave bride had no choice, no voice, and no rights to protect her. Her obedience was expected, her silence demanded. And when that silence broke, punishment arrived swiftly. One of the most infamous punishments was the bastinado. Imagine being forced onto the ground, ankles tied together, your feet lifted into the air. This wasn't for comfort, it was for torture. A cane, or sometimes a heavy iron rod, was brought down on the soles of the feet again and again. At first, it burned like fire, but after dozens of blows, the skin split, the muscles tore, and walking became impossible. Slave brides could be beaten until their feet swelled so badly they could not stand for weeks. And that was the point. You cannot run when you cannot walk. You cannot rebel when every step feels like knives in the earth beneath you. The bastinado was both punishment and humiliation, a reminder that even the act of walking, something we take for granted, could be taken away. But the bastinado was only one flavor of cruelty. Defiance might mean lashes across the back. Whips made of rawhide tore skin, leaving scars that told permanent stories. Runaway slaves faced something even more permanent: branding. A hot iron pressed into the flesh, often on the forehead, marking the woman forever. She could never hide. She could never escape her status. Her skin carried the empire's ownership for life. Other punishments attacked the body in ways that were both painful and symbolic. Ears or noses cut off to mark betrayal. Shackles locked permanently to the ankles, the clinking sound a daily reminder of status. Even jewelry could be twisted into torment. Heavy golden collars designed to look elegant, but so heavy they dug into the skin. From a distance, they looked like wealth. Up close, they were instruments of pain. Inside the Sultan's palace, punishments reached another level. The harem, often imagined as a paradise of silk, music, and perfumes, was in truth a place of constant scrutiny, rivalry, and fear. Here, disobedience was not only punished, it was staged as theater. The most feared punishment was the silken cord. A bowstring or silk rope slipped around the neck, pulled tight until silence fell. Why silk? Because blood was messy, because rope seemed common. But silk? Silk was noble. Killing with silk was, in Ottoman eyes, killing with elegance. It was the empire's way of saying, even in death, hierarchy remains. For the women who faced it, there was no elegance, only the cruel irony of dying by the same fabric they had once worn in luxury. Not every punishment killed, some erased. Slave brides could be confined to small, dark chambers, no light, no bed, barely food. For weeks they would sit in silence until their spirit bent. These rooms were known as the cage. Even princes were locked inside them. For women, it was social death. Others were punished with silence itself, gagged for days, forbidden to speak a word. In a society where women already had little voice, stripping away literal speech was torture of identity. Isolation was not only physical, but social. A punished woman might be erased from daily life entirely, ignored, denied recognition, treated as if she no longer existed. This living death was often worse than chains. Punishment in the Ottoman world was not just about pain, it was about spectacle. A slave bride accused of theft might be dragged through the streets, her face blackened with soot, forced to ride a donkey backwards while crowds mocked and spat. Others faced humiliation through shaven heads, their hair, symbols of beauty and pride, stripped away. Some were forced into mock marriages, symbolically paired with servants to destroy their dignity. Humiliation left no visible scars, but its wounds lasted longest. In a society built on honor, to be shamed was to be destroyed. Perhaps the cruelest punishment of all targeted not the woman's body, but her heart. In Ottoman law, a slave bride's children belonged to her master. They were not hers to keep. Obedience meant she might raise them by her side. Disobedience meant they could be taken, sold, given away, or raised in another household. For a mother, nothing cut deeper. To lose a child was a wound no lash could rival. Ottoman masters knew this. They used children as leverage, turning motherhood itself into a weapon of obedience. Punishments often mirrored the crime. Gossiping? The tongue burned with heated metal. Breaking Ramadan? Forced fasting until collapse. Laziness? Endless labor. Carrying water up steps, grinding grain, scrubbing floors until skin split. Defiance? Kneeling on salt or rice until the knees bled. Even daily chores became instruments of torment. A woman might be forced to carry trays of water until her arms shook uncontrollably. She might be ordered to stand in the sun for hours until fainting, only to be revived with cold water and forced to continue. Pain was ritual. Discipline was theater. When masters wanted finality, they turned to the water. Slave brides accused of betrayal or conspiracy were sewn into sacks weighted with stones, then thrown into the Bosphorus. No graves, no markers, no names. The water erased their bodies. The silence erased their memory. Others faced repeated dunking, tied, submerged, pulled up gasping, then pushed under again. Crowds gathered to watch, jeering as life dangled between air and water. Death in the Ottoman Empire was not only punishment, it was performance. But sometimes the worst fate was not death.
Disgraced concubines were stripped of their jewels and silks, sent to remote chambers. Once admired, they became invisible, living shadows in the palace. This punishment was called living death. The body remained, but the person was erased. No orders, no recognition, no conversation. To exist but not be seen, that was its own kind of execution. Why such cruelty? Because in the Ottoman system, punishment was more than discipline. It was ritual. Every lash, every scar, every humiliation was designed to remind both the punished and the witnesses, power is absolute. It was fear woven into daily life, fear that silenced rebellion before it began.